All right, it's Friday, so I might just start rambling about movies or TV shows or what I made for dinner this week or something, because it's that kind of a day, that kind of a show. But first, I figured we should step into the realm of the crazy, the climate change activists for a little bit. They're at it again. They are running around causing problems. I actually saw a friend of mine down in D.C. share that right next to. I mean, I could see the block. It is a block from my old office at thehill.com. There were people blocking the streets entirely on K Street with these climate change, banners. I think that I'm trying to find what the banners were saying, just because it was so absurd. But climate change increasingly starts to remind me a little bit of it's almost like a death cult, meaning that they're rooting for the death of all humanity, or they really think mass extinction. They're holding up signs saying mass extinction is coming. Who believes this? Who thinks that you hold up a sign that says mass extinction is coming and what you're doing is worthwhile and intelligent, and people should pay attention to you? This is very strange behavior. This is not normal. Mass extinction. We are all going to die, but there will be people after us. And I think a lot of folks have just a hard time with that. In the grand scheme of things, unless you have some connection to the Almighty, we are all somewhat, in fact, deeply insignificant. We are just, what does the guy say in Gladiator? We are shadows and dust, Maximus. Shadows and dust. And then he's like, Proximo, are you in danger of becoming a good man? We could do Gladiator all day up in this. A great movie, a timeless classic. Best thing that Russell Crowe was ever in, with the possible exception of Master and Commander, which is also a fantastic movie. I'm going to give you something. If you haven't seen Master and Commander over the weekend, make that the movie you watch this weekend. It's just so well done. It moves. It's beautifully shot. The music is excellent. Anyway, I'm just the lesser of two weevils. It's a great movie. All right, so climate change, loons. I'll never forget. I remember I went on CNN once, and I said something about people thinking that cow farts were going to, put a hole in the atmosphere. I don't know. And some, climate change activist group out of D.C., I'm sure probably funded with Soros money. I don't remember what they were called, but they started tweeting. I saw them. They tweeted at me on CNN saying that I should never be allowed on the air again because of my ignorance on climate. These people are completely nuts. And yet, if I walked into CNN right now and I sat down, or MSNBC or ABC News, any of these places, I mean, CNN's obviously my least favorite because I know it well. But if I walked into any of these places and sat down and I said, what do you think of the climate mass extinction people? The people that are holding up signs right now in the D.C. and overseas and wherever, that claim that they really think that the world, not the country. The world is going to be bereft of humanity before long. What do you think about that? Do you think that they would agree with me and they would mock? No, they won't mock them. They will not mock these people. They would say that they're raising awareness, which is the great excuse of activists with stupid causes at any given time on any given issue. Oh, we're just raising awareness. Well, if they're raising awareness by stopping me from getting through my commute to get to my job, to pay my bills, I got to tell you, I'd be pretty upset with these climate change loons. But the scariest thing that I'm seeing these days is that, there are ancient cultures where they worship like a child god of some kind. There are times when, in different dynasties where if you were a part of a dynasty and the child and the person that's now next in line in succession is considered a god king, that now they're all adults are saying, oh, this person is deified as the next emperor or whatever. I mean, this is a thing that can happen. I think there's even I'm trying to remember the movie about it. Anyway, it happened in China, because there the leader was the emperor is not really a human, and so the emperor ends up being a kid. Greta Thunberg is being held up as some kind of child god emperor. I mean, she's 16, but she's not that young. All right? I mean, she's almost an adult, 2 years away from adulthood. But the point is, Even an 18-year-old doesn't know anything about this stuff. But 18-year-olds, you are allowed to criticize when they become public figures, unless it's David Hogg, and then if you criticize him, who is just a smug imbecile, you're supposed to lose your job, get in trouble, and no one's allowed to talk to you again. He's allowed to run around calling people terrorists who believe in the Second Amendment, the NRAs, terrorists, blood on their hands. And if you push back, how dare you? He's a child. This is what they do. How dare you? He's a child. You can't say that to him. Well, Thunberg is now traveling around. Where is she? She's going to some climate summit. And she is being used to shame people in leadership positions because they are not doing enough. She just arrived in Madrid after taking an overnight train there from Lisbon because there's a gathering of world leaders, and she says they are failing to combat climate change. Let's play clip 21, please.
We are really gaining momentum in Sweden. We are getting bigger and bigger, and our voices are being heard more and more. But of course, that does not translate into political action.
They're growing, folks. This has become now a global movement of people who are just intoxicated with the brainless self-righteousness of all this climate change nonsense. I mean, I sit here and I really do. Every day I come and I do this show, I try to just tell you the truth as I know it about everything. There is no reason for me to not believe the world is going to end, other than the fact that I don't believe the world is going to end because of CO2 in the air, which is 0.01% of the atmosphere, by the way. You really think you think that that's going to end all human life? This is insane. I mean, you can go back and watch these movies. There was a time when there was a surge. These things go in cycles, right? I mean, there are surges in different mass psychoses that you'll see over time. And there were those movies. Remember the was it The Day After Tomorrow? And there was another one where it's just, the climate change stuff all happens. And don't people have to go up to the mountains because the sea levels rise so high?
Wasn't that with Jake Gyllenhaal?
I think so. Yeah.
It was okay.
These movies stink.
I was being nice.
Yeah, I know. Brandon's a very polite fellow. It's funny because having you in here, like you're agreeable. Whereas as much as we love and miss producer Mark, who's right now, I hope he's putting on the sunblock because Jamaica, those rays, he could end up getting quite a burn. So we're gonna send a little reminder, producer Mark, put on your sunblock. Don't get so drunk on margaritas on the beach that you forget that. But he's a little salty. He's a little salty.
I'll say it.
Yeah, producer Brandon agrees. Producer Mark's a little salty sometimes.
I'm the Switzerland of producers.
Yeah, exactly. So. These movies, though, they came out because people were at that point. They were so invested in this idea that the world's going to come to an end. I mean, go back. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not taking it out of context. Just go look at the Al Gore movie about polar bears and how. I mean, it wasn't. Sorry, he didn't make a documentary about polar bears, but an inconvenient truth. Go back and watch that movie and look at the predictions, including that polar bears were all drowning and they had to. Polar bears. I think of polar bears kind of sounding like Chewbacca a little bit, and they're trying to. That's as close as I get to Chewbacca noise. And they couldn't get from one ice floe to another. Actually, polar bear populations are thriving all across Alaska and the Canadian North. And I even saw a story yesterday that polar bears are becoming a huge nuisance in, I think, part of eastern Russia, in and around Siberia, maybe something like that, where there's too many of them. The point being, not just that I want to talk about polar bears, but that the things that they say don't come true, and then they expect us to listen to their predictions the next time around. The things that they have promised us were going to happen, unless we do what they say, have not happened, and now they're pulling the same routine, the same, you better do this, or else these other terrible things are going to happen. And I just have to ask, I have to wonder, at what point have we had enough? At what point do normal people just say, we don't want to do this anymore? We don't want to go through this anymore. It's now an apocalyptic cult. And that's important for our understanding. I mean, I said it was a death cult before, but it's not a death cult. It's not like the thuggy cult of India from the 19th century, which is where we get the term thug, where they would strangle people on the side of the road, and it was the god Kali that they were strangling that they were strangling in order to appease and please. I mean, here's a perfect example. You look at this. Forbes is calling it an apocalyptic cult. That's certainly true. I just did a search today to look at what's going on in the climate change world, and this world is going to end stuff that AOC says. I mean, there's legislation being introduced in Congress. I'm not, this isn't like I'm picking on the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Pastafarian or whatever that was. Remember that guy? He brought some church challenge or some church and state challenge over this because he wanted to wear a pasta strainer on his head, and he said it was a religious. Anyway. We're not picking on some little insignificant group. These people really, they're socialists, always. There's been a little bit more of an openness recently to talk about how they're socialists. But now we see exactly what they're planning, and you see these stories, and, you can understand that the propaganda effect here has been successful in a way that's troubling. Because if people really believe that we are facing the apocalypse, what are they not willing to do? I mean, I have to ask that in all seriousness. Where do they draw the line? You look back in history, and I think it's an important lesson for all of us. You never want to underestimate the collective's ability to destroy. That governments, which is always at some level a representation of the collectivist mindset, governments have an unbelievable and unending capacity for the infliction of misery and despair and destruction, which is why our founders, what was the big concern? Constraining government. We need government at some level, but we also want to constrain the powers of government. You look at what happened in China in the 1960s, the Great Famine, where you had at least 20, perhaps as many as 40 million people, and they don't even really know, but tens of millions of people starved to death. That was all in the name of progress. Mao didn't come forward and say, hey, I got an idea. Let's just starve millions of people. We got too many people here. No, they said we're going to have the Great Leap Forward was all about the industrialization process, the necessity of leveraging, of using mass mobilization of people in order to create a more industrial and therefore more prosperous society. And that resulted in millions and millions of people dying. And the government of China has never apologized. You can't even really talk about it. They have no interest in dealing with that past. But anywhere that they have unrestrained power, government can destroy. And climate change is, at its core, an invitation for government to have absolute power over everything and anything it wants, with no restraints whatsoever. So that's why even in little things, I mean, I see a sinister hand behind even little stories that they push forward, like NBC News here, birds are getting smaller, scientists see the echo of climate change. No. Birds are not getting smaller because of climate change, okay? Sorry. No way. A 1 degree change in global temperature, I mean, this is, and that's now the birds are getting smaller. It was the polar bears were drowning before, now the birds are getting smaller. And they think that I'm crazy. They think that I'm somebody, all I do is research and read and try to learn more and try to speak to people that I think are smarter than me on different issues or just smarter than me in general. I just want to learn, bring as much as I can together, and share as much worthwhile stuff with you while I'm hopefully entertaining you too. That's all I do. That's my life's work. And I see things like this and I say, they think that I'm missing something. They're out of their minds. Philly students at a climate change rally won't be punished for missing class. Why are there all these exceptions made? If you want to go protest climate change, you just get to skip school? I mean, I got to be honest with you. When does somebody say, hey, Greta Thunberg is high school age? Does she doesn't go to school so she can go travel the world and talk about climate change? It's like truancy, isn't it? Am I missing something? She doesn't have a PhD in climatology. She's just rolling around giving speeches other people write for her and just abusing the good faith that many of us have about not wanting to, just not even good faith, just being good people. Yeah, I don't want to criticize kids. I don't want to make fun of kids. It's not nice. But I got to be able to criticize messages that are trying to influence public policy, and certainly the adults that are behind all of this. California bans insurers from dropping policies made riskier by climate change. No, they're not riskier by climate change. They're riskier because of California mismanagement. All these stories. Greta Thunberg, they try so desperately to silence us, she says at the Madrid climate talks. Who is trying that's a perfect example. Who's trying to silence her? I mean, she was like the biggest news story in the world during the UN summit here. Who's silencing her? No one silences her. They turn her into an international. She was up for the Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing. It's like Seinfeld is a show about nothing. It's a great show. Her Nobel Peace Prize would have been a Peace Prize for doing nothing. It's amazing. Well, I mean, Obama already actually got that Peace Prize. The I Did Nothing Prize, but they're going to give it to me anyway. This is a mass delusion, my friends, and it's not going to get better. Because the problem with people who believe so much in something like this is that when you challenge them, they become angry. And then when you challenge them, they become angry, and the evidence is now clear and no longer on their side. Then they become indignant, and they shut off the normal processes of self-correction because it's so embarrassing. At some point, people will wake up and they'll realize that their belief in this apocalyptic cult is so embarrassing that they will refuse to believe it as a way of protecting their own psyche because they can't go forward in life accepting what a bunch of dumbasses they are. That's where this whole climate change thing is going. So they'll completely shut down reason. They'll shut down debate and discussion in favor of, well, I can't be that dumb, so this must be true. Just give it time. Hope you all are enjoying that we have the podcast of the Buck Sexton Show up earlier than we had. Well, it's up earlier now than it ever was before, but we've been doing it for a month or two. Numbers keep going up every month, and that is because of one thing and one thing only. Those of you who listen to this show believe in it. You believe in what I do. I believe in our mission here, and you tell people about the show. It's the best way for us to grow it. Also, those of you who haven't yet, it's kind of fun. If you haven't already, I think you really dig it. You can watch the show on Pluto TV, channel 248, The First. I also want you to get in that habit because we're going to be building out 248 Pluto TV, The First, in 2020. More shows, more specials, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's going to be a one-stop shop digital channel for conservative free speech. And so I want you to download it now. You can watch me, watch my man Jesse Kelly, who's hilarious and a great dude. And I want you to get in that rhythm because we're going to be adding people to the lineup. We're going to be adding people with great shows, great voices, and it's just the beginning. But download that app now because the more you guys download it, the more momentum we have to add things faster. And also, of course, the more you tell people about this podcast and our audience grows, the better all around for everybody. Because otherwise, you don't want Papa Buck to have to get a real job. That's going to be sad for everyone. Get in a roll call here in a second, team, but I just got, producer Brandon, who is making sure that the hut keeps on rolling while producer Mark is on the beach with his newly married lady. Producer Brandon, I've never seen you with sleeves rolled up before. You have more ink than most members of the Hells Angels. This is a new thing.
You really have never noticed my tattoos before?
No.
All right.
What do we got here? I mean, I know people can't really see it, but I just talk about what's on the right. But that's almost a full sleeve.
Yeah, it's 3/4 sleeve.
3/4 sleeve.
I know you're Mr. Movie. Do you remember the film The Never Ending Story?
Of course.
So that's Never Ending Story. Falcor.
Oh, you have oh my gosh, you have the
Gamok,
big
the
flying white, like it looks like a Maltese, the dog.
Yeah, it's just his face, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not gonna take my shirt
No,
off.
that's right. That's a different show.
I have the rock guy over here. Remember the guy who eats rocks?
These powerful.
Yeah.
It's that guy, right?
Yeah. And I have the Orin on my shoulder. So it's like a whole theme.
You have a giant Never-Ending Story sleeve tattoo. How did we never get to this before?
I don't know. You never.
Producer Nick, who helps us on the video side, he's inked up too, man. You guys have some good stuff.
Right
Where
on.
do you go to get this done?
A lot. I'll give them a shout out. Out on Long Island, the Notorious Tattoo, Big Joel, that has done a lot. But I've gotten
I mean, that's like real artwork. I mean, it looks like it's like a mural on your arm. That's pretty. It's pretty.
I don't want to go
I
somewhere.
mean, I'm way too much of a wimp, by the way. I wouldn't even get like a shamrock on my ankle. It would hurt too
You're
much.
not going to get Nixon on your back?
I mean, that is a bold tattoo that Roger Stone has. What do we got on the other arm?
Well, this one, I got,
Is that Snoopy?
That's Woodstock, which I got in Woodstock. Last year, I went to the Woodstock site.
Wow.
And I went to Woodstock Tattoo, and I got Woodstock with, a bandana on it. So I've gotten themes.
Wow.
And I can't show you this, but I got a big radio mic.
That's cool. I mean, if I were to get a tattoo, I think it would be a radio mic.
Yeah.
But then I would just start talking to my own shoulder or something all the time, which might be a little bit weird.
No, I have a bunch. I have the handicapped guy because I have a physical disability with the mohawk and metal horns thrown up to make it a little bit more like me.
Oh, wow.
As well. My dad's business card. He passed away like 7 years ago, so I got his business card in the back of my arm. So I got a
Dude,
few.
you're like a art gallery walking around here. You got a lot of stuff. I guess I just had never but you're just today. Producer Brandon's sleeves are like way up, and I was like, whoa, got a lot of ink.
I guess because at the old studio we would be between.
Oh yeah, we had a separation, so I had
right,
that's
and it's been cold out, so I haven't been wearing tank tops or anything.
Well, if you guys like ink, I gotta tell you, Producer Brandon, you should send him an email. He'll tell you where to go.
Thank you.
He's got it at the high level. All right, with that, Producer Brandon giving us the education about where to get the ink. We have roll call stuff to get to, and my friends, here we go. I made roast chicken for myself earlier this week, by the way, and I didn't make enough sauce. And one thing I've learned is that even though calorically it's probably terrible, you always got to make more sauce than they tell you to make. It was like a pan sauce. This is just a random brain fart, but I'm just saying, always make a little more sauce. Because that was the one thing that
I think you need to give a certain kind of turkey another shot because you love barbecue. And when I went down to Austin, Texas this year, they have the best turkey at some of the best barbecue places. So they know how to do it.
No, I just like to give people a hard time about turkey. I mean, my mother made turkey this year for Thanksgiving. It was fantastic. It was absolutely delicious. Right. Yeah, but she's like a maestro. I mean, she's like an artiste with that turkey. All right, here we go. Let's get to some of our friends here on roll call. We have Facebook.com/Buck Sexton if you want to send it in on Facebook. Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com is our email address. Chris writes in, Buck, love the show. Uh-oh. I do have to take issue with your take on Bond movies. They've always been a bit cheesy and tongue-in-cheek, but more fun than serious. The latest Bond movies are watchable, but not really in the spirit of the genre. Austin Powers is even more in line than the pouty new Bond. Yeah, baby. You guys all remember that? Austin Powers was a phenomenon for a while. Yeah. He was a lot. I've got to think. I haven't seen an Austin Powers movie in a long time. I think they made too many of them. The first one was pretty great.
First one was great. Second one, of course, had Mini-Me, so that was classic. The third one is when I just jumped the shark with Beyonce. That's probably the only time I've ever walked out of a theater.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Lucinda, if I may ask a question. I heard today a portion of Nancy Pelosi going ahead with articles of impeachment. Who will be president if Mr. Trump and Mr. Pence are removed from power? Would we have the first woman unelected Democrat president? Lucinda, yes. The answer to your question is yes. If they did manage to remove Trump from office, and of course then Mike Pence, who is the vice president, would become the president. And then if they manage to remove him, which sounds crazy, but it's only a little bit crazier than removing Trump in the first part of this, then yes, Nancy Pelosi is third in line. The Speaker of the House would become the President of the United States. Nancy Pelosi would be the president. I think the chances of that happening are probably, 1 in a million, but I can't say it's zero. I can't say it is zero. So we'll see. We shall see. Let's see what we have next here. Derek. Hey, Buck, Nancy Pelosi must only be Catholic for the communion. She seems to be hitting the wine a lot these days. Whoa, Derek. Let's see. Unless, of course, the videos are edited, I just want to say thanks for making me one of the most informed in the Facebook community. I tell everybody to watch your show so they can be up to date, too. Keep up the great work. Shields high. Derek, really appreciate the kind words. it does really mean a lot. I mean, producer Brandon can attest to the fact that I'm sending thoughts. It's kind of like I think Rumsfeld used to call them snowflakes, where he'd send like top line emails to people all the time, like this, that, I need this, that. I'm sending these to Brandon and Mark when he's in. They'll get and I always tell them, you guys, you don't have to respond, but if you get an email from me at 4:00 in the morning about how we have to do a cool segment on something, just file it away for later. So the show is in constant. People ask me that. How do you prepare for the radio show you do every day? And I just say everything is preparation. I mean, everything I read, everything I think about, everything that it's not like I have every morning I wake up, drink my coffee, start reading in so I can be up on the day's news, so I come here and know what's happened. But I go home at night, I'm reading books, I'm taking notes. I'm reading a biography of Stalin right now, so you'll be hearing me talk more about just peppering in some things that I think are noteworthy from that. I've talked to you about 12 Who Ruled, the book about the Committee of Public Safety from the French Revolution that I recently finished. So there's a bunch of things that I try to work into all this, and then also just my conversations with people that are very either have expertise in something or politically active or just knowledgeable. I've got some stealth conservatives who are brilliant people in private sector life who sometimes feed me either ideas for segments or just thoughts on things. And so that's the show. The show is everything. This is a show. Seinfeld says it's a show about nothing. This is a show about everything. The Buck Sexton Show. A show about everything. Maybe we should put that on a commercial. It's true, though. Let's see. Chesson. Hey, Buck, I was listening to another podcast and talking about Jim Jones, and the way Jones speaks and the language he uses reminds me of Joe Biden. Shields high, beard's thick. My beard's coming a little bit. Producer Brandon also has a better beard than me, but we don't have to talk about that right now. But Jim Jones, do you mean Admiral Jim Jones or Jim Jones, the Kool-Aid guy? Right? Isn't there's two. I'm probably the Kool-Aid guy. The Kool-Aid drinking guy, not the guy from the Kool-Aid commercial. You know what I mean? The guy that wasn't that the thing? They had the cult, and they all drank. That's where drank the Kool-Aid comes from. Wasn't the guy's name Jim Jones? I think so. I don't know. Buck doesn't know everything, just almost everything. Let's see. John, Buck, if for whatever reason you find yourself just kicking back at home this Saturday, maybe put together your favorite snack and beverage, kick back and watch Tora, 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 a sad non-comedy of errors, but perhaps in the end it needed to happen to awake the sleeping giant, something that Yamamoto never said. Enjoy the adult beverage in the movie. All right, Tora, Tora, Tora. I've never even heard of that. I don't know. Is that a movie? What the heck? Sometimes people write in, I'm just so curious. I'm like, is that a thing? I don't know. I have to Google that and figure this out. I've never seen Bridge on the River Kwai, which is probably an unacceptable oversight on my part because I believe it is Ron Swanson's favorite movie, along with Herbie Fully Loaded and another John Wayne movie, I think. I forget.
Tora, Tora, Tora is from 1970.
What is it?
Yeah, it's a movie, the dramatic retelling of the Pearl Harbor attack. It details everything in the days that led up to the tragic moment in American history.
I've never even heard of that before. You?
I have, but I never really thought about it. I felt like I've heard it as a phrase.
What do you think about Pearl Harbor, the movie?
I never saw it.
I love Team America when they have that thing.
I've
They're like,
that.
Pearl Harbor really sucked. It's so true because it was so bad. It's such a bad movie. People get mad at me when I say that. They like it. I'm like, why? You want to just watch us get sneak attacked and destroyed, and then the Doolittle raid. The Doolittle raid is not enough. Pendulum swing on the other side for me, man. It needs to be like Pearl Harbor and then, raising the flag at Iwo Jima or something. Like we need to, I'm sorry. It's not the Doolittle raid. Oh, we could strike at Japan too. I mean, it was interesting and all, but it wasn't enough. Anyway, as you've noticed, I'm a radio host. I have opinions on things. Just a thing that I got. Let's see what else we have here. Hold on a second. That's a thing that I got. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. Did I already say that? John. Great show as always. Buck rocks. John, you rock. It's a great message. Yeah, anybody who ever wants to get in, roll call it. Remember, you can either just write Buck, your show is perfection in the subject line or the first line, or you can write Buck, the Freedom Hut keeps me safe and warm at night. Then I know you're a friendly and everything else you're going to say is true. You've already established you have good taste. You're a wise person. So from there, I think we're ready to roll. Matt writes, dude, I knew somebody was going to weigh in on this. I knew somebody when we were having a ridiculous talk about, would you rather be, die from like bee stings or like a 1,000 bee stings or like a tarantula bite to the face, Anyway, Matt writes, Crocs kill you by grabbing you and drag you underwater to perform a death roll. So more likely you die by drowning. At least with a boa constrictor, you would probably pass out first. Crap, I think he's right. I think the croc usually grabs you with that first, and then they pull you in the water, and then they roll, and they kind of, you're disoriented and you're bleeding while this is happening, obviously, and terrified.
That sounds terrible.
And it's a horrible way to go. But a boa constrictor, man, I feel like that snake would be looking at you like, like as you're, slowly getting killed.
Maybe a croc in a land fight. There's no water around. Maybe that's what we were talking about.
But also, can't you beat a croc in a land fight, really, if there was no water around? You know what I mean? Shouldn't you be able to win that? Maybe
at least
not.
run away.
I know the Komodo dragons. I used to watch way too much of like those late night animal shows. I know the Komodo dragons have horrible bacteria in their mouth, and so if they bite you even a little bit, it's very very decent chance you'll have sepsis, blood poisoning, you could die. So from a bacterial infection.
There are so many things on this planet
that will
kill you.
A lot of them live in Australia too.
I was just about to say
right?
that.
Australia's this country of wonderful people, and they got all these animals. It's like, oh mate, you don't want to touch that thing. It'll rip your face off.
You ever watch those
override your central nervous system?
Those videos of huntsman spiders, people catching them in their house.
It's terrifying.
Oh my God.
I hate spiders. All right, we gotta come back, do more roll call. Sorry, we had to take a breather there while we're talking about whether you'd rather get death rolled by a crocodile or crushed by a boa constrictor. Oh, my parents! I have the best parents in the world. They used to play this game, and they'll still make jokes about it to this day. Where we would ask my dad and my mom, who are both very smart people. We're little kids. We'd say like, "Who would win in a fight? A Tyrannosaurus Rex or a killer whale?" And they would have to, they'd be like, well, son, it's Tyrannosaurus, obviously very large jaws, powerful teeth, but are we talking on land or in water? Or what if the killer whale was, if the Tyrannosaurus Rex was up to its waist and the killer whale was in the, we had to they really took our requests for these absurd scenarios seriously. But, sometimes it gets real, folks. Sometimes it's like, what about a Russian brown bear versus Siberian tiger? That's a close one. I don't think anybody really knows how that goes down. So, now that I've told you all the really important things for your weekend, we've got a little more roll call coming your way here. And the best way to do it is, of course, to get into the unread roll call. Gary writes, our support for you and like you is endless, and my friends affirm our commitments to the Constitution and our American values. Wish you had a bigger format. Fox News Channel would greatly benefit if you had a slot. Difficult for them to hear the other side of arguments, too. Where can we follow your broadcast, and why haven't you sent me a friend request? Miss seeing you, man. Thanks, as always, for your courage on our behalf, Gary. Yeah, Gary, I don't know. Ask Fox. And as for where you can follow me, obviously, the podcast is a great place to start. Pluto TV, channel 248, the first. Or you can listen on your local affiliate. We're on, I don't even know how many, over 120, 140 now, maybe, something like that, affiliates. I think someone said 160, but we got a lot of things. Jeremy wants to talk turkey. Buck, frying turkey is the best way to cook it. It takes the most boring meat and transforms it to the likes of chicken, which is the third best meat behind pork and beef. I will say it takes a certain amount of courage or recklessness to drop a 16-pound bird into 3 gallons of hot oil. As long as the turkey is completely thawed, you will not have any issues. Huh. You can fry an entire turkey? Is that anything that, you need a really big fryer to do that, right? Am I missing something? I don't know. That sounds good. Fried anything is good. Unfortunately, fried is terrible for you, but it tastes delicious.
I was about to say you can fry anything.
Yeah. Don't people fry Oreos?
Yeah. Usually at county fairs, they're a big hit.
Yeah. A lot of gluten. Steven, Buck, I love your show. Cut the cable cord. You can always pull Fox News shows up on YouTube. There's even a live free streaming if you look for it. All right, Steven, maybe I'll give that a shot. I think it will be kind of fun to cut the cord. I really don't watch any cable. I just watch digital stuff, and I'm really embracing this new digital world we live in. And I don't like the dominance of the cable companies. I think it's time to put that to an end. Speaking of an end, the show is just pretty much at an end, which is sad because this show is amazing. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Please make sure you get some rest and relaxation going. Spend time with your loved ones. Do some cool stuff that puts your mind at ease, whether it's meditation or woodworking or whatever. And come back ready next week because I think Monday we got the IG report, so it's going to be interesting. Until then, my friends, my fellow patriots, have a great weekend. Shields high.